To achieve a code-compliant circuit extension from existing knob and tube wiring, several steps and materials must be considered. The primary material is NMB, non-metallic sheath cable. You will also need electrical boxes and covers, wire connectors, Romex staples or cable clamps, and optionally, a metal junction box. The first step is to locate the existing knob and tube circuit. Identify the circuit that needs to be extended and trace the wires to an accessible location. This is typically in an attic or crawl space. Secondly, consider installing a junction box. This is optional but recommended. If desired, install a metal junction box at the point where the new cable will connect to the knob and tube wires. This provides a safe and accessible connection point for future maintenance and modifications. Thirdly, run the NMB cable. Run the NMB cable down the wall from the attic to the location of the new receptacle. Secure the cable every 18 inches with Romex staples or cable clamps to ensure it is properly supported and protected. Fourthly, connect the knob and tube wires to the NMB cable, but only if you opted out of installing a junction box. If a junction box is not used, connect the NMB cable directly to the knob and tube wires using wire connectors. Ensure the connections are secure and properly insulated with electrical tape rated for electrical connections. Fifth, install the electrical box and receptacle. At the desired location of the new receptacle, install an electrical box and cover. Wire the receptacle according to the manufacturer's instructions. This typically involves connecting the black wire to the brass terminal, the white wire to the silver terminal, and the ground wire to the green terminal. 6. Pull the wires and connect them. Pull the NMB cable into the electrical box and connect the wires to the receptacle terminals. Ensure all connections are tight and secure. 7th, secure and insulate all connections. Secure all wire connections with wire connectors and insulate them with electrical tape. This helps prevent accidental contact and potential shorts. 8th, verify operation. Turn on the circuit and test the new receptacle to ensure it is functioning properly. Use the circuit tester to confirm that the receptacle is properly wired and grounded. Additional notes to keep in mind include: firstly, using 14 American wire gauge NMB cable for most residential applications. This size is suitable for 15 amp circuits. Secondly, do not run NMB cable on or through the surface of knob and tube wiring. This can create a fire hazard and is not code compliant. Thirdly, if the new circuit is designed to carry more than 10 amps, consider installing a larger size NMB cable or consulting with a qualified electrician. Typically, 12 American wire gauge NMB cable is required for 20 amp circuits. Always follow applicable electrical codes and consult with a licensed electrician if necessary for guidance and inspection. Electrical work can be dangerous, and it is important to ensure that all work is done safely and in compliance with local regulations. When working with knob and tube wiring, it is crucial to exercise extreme caution. Knob and tube wiring is an older type of wiring that lacks a ground wire and is often insulated with cloth. This type of wiring can be brittle and prone to damage, making it a potential fire hazard. Before starting any work on a knob and tube circuit, it is important to energize the circuit at the main breaker panel. This will help prevent electric shock and potential injury. Use a non-contact voltage tester to verify that the circuit is energized before touching any wires. When connecting new wiring to knob and tube wiring, it is important to use appropriate connectors that are rated for use with both types of wiring. Wire connectors, such as wire nuts, should be used to create a secure and insulated connection. It is also important to wrap the connections with electrical tape to provide additional insulation and protection. When running NMB cable, it is important to protect the cable from physical damage. This can be done by running the cable through conduit or by securing it to studs or joists with Romex staples. The cable should be secured every 18 inches to prevent it from sagging or becoming damaged. When installing an electrical box, it is important to choose a box that is the appropriate size for the number of wires and devices that will be installed in it. The box should also be securely mounted to the wall or ceiling to prevent it from moving or becoming dislodged. When wiring a receptacle, it is important to follow the manufacturer's instructions carefully. The wires should be connected to the correct terminals and the screws should be tightened securely. The receptacle should also be properly grounded to prevent electric shock. After completing the wiring, it is important to test the circuit to ensure that it is working properly. Use a circuit tester to verify that the receptacle is properly wired and grounded. If there are any problems with the wiring, they should be corrected immediately. Remember to always consult local electrical codes and a qualified electrician if you have any questions or concerns about working with knob and tube wiring. Electrical work can be dangerous, and it is important to ensure that all work is done safely and in compliance with local regulations. The National Electrical Code, or NEC, provides specific guidelines for extending existing circuits, including those involving knob and tube wiring. Some key considerations based on the NEC include, firstly, the use of a grounding conductor. Since knob and tube wiring typically lacks a grounding conductor, any extension of the circuit must include a grounding conductor that is extended back to the source. This can be achieved by running a separate grounding wire back to the main panel or by using a grounding type receptacle that is connected to a nearby grounded metal water pipe or other approved grounding electrode. Secondly, overcurrent protection is also a crucial element. The overcurrent protection device, such as a circuit breaker or fuse, must be sized appropriately for the conductors being used in the extension. This is typically 15 amps for 14 American wire gauge wire and 20 amps for 12 American wire gauge wire. Thirdly, junction box requirements must also be met. Any splices or connections between the knob and tube wiring and the new wiring must be made inside an approved junction box. The junction box must be accessible and must be securely mounted. Fourthly, cable support must be adhered to. The NMB cable must be supported at intervals not exceeding 18 inches and within 12 inches of any box or fitting. This helps to prevent the cable from sagging or becoming damaged. Fifthly, protection from physical damage must be in place. The NMB cable must be protected from physical damage, such as by running it through conduit or by installing it in a location where it is not likely to be struck or damaged. Sixth, insulation requirements also apply. Any exposed conductors must be insulated to prevent accidental contact. This can be achieved by using wire connectors or by wrapping the conductors with electrical tape. Seventh, compatibility of wiring methods is important. The NEC generally prohibits the use of different wiring methods in the same raceway or cable. However, there are some exceptions to this rule, such as when extending an existing circuit. In these cases, it is important to ensure that the wiring methods are compatible and that the connections are made properly. 8. Identification of conductors is essential. All conductors must be identified by color or other means to indicate their function. The black wire is typically used for the ungrounded conductor, the white wire is typically used for the grounded conductor, and the green wire is typically used for the grounding conductor. 9th, workmanship also matters. All electrical work must be performed in a neat and workmanlike manner. This means that the wires should be properly installed, the connections should be secure, and the overall installation should be aesthetically pleasing. 10th, inspection and approval is important. All electrical work should be inspected and approved by a qualified electrical inspector. This helps to ensure that the work is done safely and in compliance with local regulations. Some additional considerations when extending knob and tube wiring include, firstly, insulation. Knob and tube wiring is often installed in areas that are not insulated, such as attics and crawl spaces. When extending knob and tube wiring, it is important to ensure that the area is properly insulated to prevent heat loss and to improve energy efficiency. Secondly, load calculations should be performed. Before extending a circuit, it is important to calculate the load that will be placed on the circuit to ensure that it is not overloaded. This can be done by adding up the wattage of all the devices that will be connected to the circuit. Thirdly, grounding electrode system inspections are important. The grounding electrode system is the system that provides a path for fault current to flow back to the source in the event of a ground fault. It is important to inspect the grounding electrode system to ensure that it is properly installed and that it is in good condition. Fourth, arc fault circuit interrupters, or size might be required. A size are devices that are designed to protect against arc faults, which are a common cause of electrical fires. The NEC requires a size to be installed in certain locations, such as bedrooms and living rooms. Fifth, surge protection should be considered. Surge protection devices are designed to protect electronic equipment from damage caused by voltage surges. Voltage surges can be caused by lightning strikes, power outages, and other electrical disturbances. Sixth, carbon monoxide detectors may be needed. Carbon monoxide is a colorless, odorless gas that can be deadly. The NEC requires carbon monoxide detectors to be installed in certain locations, such as near sleeping areas. Finally, smoke alarms are very important. Smoke alarms are devices that are designed to detect smoke and to alert occupants to a fire. The NEC requires smoke alarms to be installed in certain locations, such as in every bedroom and on every level of a home. By following these guidelines, you can help to ensure that any extension of knob and tube wiring is done safely and in compliance with local regulations. Remember to always consult with a qualified electrician if you have any questions or concerns. When dealing with older homes and knob and tube wiring, it's crucial to identify and mitigate potential risks associated with insulation. Improperly installed insulation can create a fire hazard if it comes into direct contact with knob and tube wiring. This is because knob and tube wiring relies on free air circulation to dissipate heat. Covering it with insulation can trap heat and cause the wiring to overheat, potentially leading to a fire. To prevent this, maintain a safe distance between the wiring and any insulation materials. A general recommendation is to keep at least 3 inches of clear space around the wiring. If you must insulate around knob and tube wiring, consider using fire-resistant insulation materials specifically designed for this purpose. These materials are less likely to ignite if the wiring overheats. Another approach is to install physical barriers, such as metal or fire-rated wood, to separate the wiring from the insulation. These barriers create a protected airspace and prevent direct contact. When working with knob and tube wiring, it's essential to have a qualified electrician inspect the wiring before adding any insulation. They can assess the condition of the wiring, identify any potential hazards, and recommend the safest and most appropriate insulation methods for your home. If you're unsure about the safety of your knob and tube wiring, it's best to have it replaced with modern wiring. This will eliminate the risk of fire associated with knob and tube wiring and provide a safer electrical system for your home. Replacing knob and tube wiring can be a significant investment, but it's a worthwhile one for the safety and well-being of your family. In some cases, your insurance company may require you to replace knob and tube wiring before they will provide coverage. In addition to the fire risks, knob and tube wiring can also pose an electrical shock hazard. The wiring is often ungrounded, which means that there is no path for fault current to flow back to the source in the event of a ground fault. This can result in a dangerous electrical shock if someone comes into contact with a live wire. To mitigate the risk of electrical shock, consider installing ground fault circuit interrupters, or GFCIs, on circuits that serve wet areas, such as bathrooms and kitchens. GFCIs are designed to detect ground faults and to quickly shut off the power to the circuit, preventing electrical shock. It's also important to avoid touching any exposed wires or electrical components. If you need to work on the electrical system, always de-energize the circuit at the main breaker panel before touching any wires. When working with knob and tube wiring, it's essential to use the right tools and equipment. This includes insulated screwdrivers, pliers, and wire strippers. Using the wrong tools can damage the wiring and increase the risk of electrical shock. It's also important to wear appropriate personal protective equipment such as safety glasses and gloves. Safety glasses will protect your eyes from debris, and gloves will protect your hands from electrical shock. In older homes with knob and tube wiring, it's common to find that the wiring has been modified or extended over the years. These modifications may not have been done in accordance with electrical codes, and they may pose a safety hazard. It's important to have a qualified electrician inspect any modifications to the wiring to ensure that they are safe and code compliant. If the modifications are not safe or code compliant, they should be corrected immediately. In some cases, it may be necessary to replace the entire wiring system to ensure safety. When replacing knob and tube wiring, it's important to use the correct type and size of wire. The wire should be rated for the voltage and amperage of the circuit. It should also be installed in accordance with electrical codes. It's also important to properly ground the new wiring system. Grounding provides a path for fault current to flow back to the source in the event of a ground fault, preventing electrical shock. When grounding the wiring system, it's important to use the correct grounding methods and equipment. This includes grounding rods, grounding wires, and grounding connectors. It's also important to test the grounding system to ensure that it is working properly. The National Electrical Code, or NEC, provides detailed requirements for grounding electrical systems. It's important to follow these requirements carefully to ensure safety. In addition to the safety considerations, there are also some practical considerations to keep in mind when extending knob and tube wiring. One consideration is the cost of the extension. Extending knob and tube wiring can be more expensive than extending modern wiring. This is because it requires specialized knowledge and equipment. Another consideration is the availability of parts. Parts for knob and tube wiring can be difficult to find. This is because knob and tube wiring is no longer manufactured. If you need to replace a part, you may have to search for it at a salvage yard or online. A further consideration is the impact on the value of your home. Knob and tube wiring can reduce the value of your home. This is because it is considered to be a safety hazard. If you are planning to sell your home, you may want to consider replacing the knob and tube wiring before putting it on the market. Finally, consider the long-term costs as well. While extending knob and tube wiring may seem like a cost-effective solution in the short term, it can be more expensive in the long term. This is because knob and tube wiring is more likely to require repairs than modern wiring. It is also less energy efficient. In the long run, it may be more cost-effective to replace the knob and tube wiring with modern wiring. When working with knob and tube wiring, it's important to be aware of the potential for asbestos exposure. Asbestos is a mineral that was commonly used in building materials, including knob and tube wiring. Asbestos is a known carcinogen, and exposure to asbestos can cause serious health problems such as lung cancer and mesothelioma. If you suspect that your knob and tube wiring contains asbestos, it's important to take precautions to protect yourself from exposure. This includes wearing a respirator, gloves, and protective clothing. It's also important to avoid disturbing the asbestos-containing materials. If you need to remove asbestos-containing materials, it's best to hire a qualified asbestos abatement contractor. Asbestos abatement contractors have the training and equipment necessary to safely remove asbestos-containing materials. They will also dispose of the materials properly. In addition to the safety considerations, there are also some legal considerations to keep in mind when working with knob and tube wiring. In some jurisdictions, it is illegal to extend knob and tube wiring. This is because knob and tube wiring is considered to be a safety hazard. Before extending knob and tube wiring, it's important to check with your local building department to see if it is permitted. If it is not permitted, you will need to replace the knob and tube wiring with modern wiring. Even if it is permitted to extend knob and tube wiring, you may need to obtain a permit before starting any work. The permit process will ensure that the work is done in accordance with electrical codes. It's also important to have the work inspected by a qualified electrical inspector. The inspection will ensure that the work is done safely and in compliance with local regulations. When working with knob and tube wiring, it's important to be aware of the potential for insurance issues. Some insurance companies will not provide coverage for homes with knob and tube wiring. This is because knob and tube wiring is considered to be a safety hazard. If you have knob and tube wiring, you may need to replace it with modern wiring in order to obtain insurance coverage. Even if your insurance company will provide coverage for homes with knob and tube wiring, they may charge a higher premium. This is because knob and tube wiring is considered to be a higher risk than modern wiring. It's important to shop around for insurance and to compare rates from different companies. Be sure to disclose the fact that your home has knob and tube wiring. If you do not disclose this information, your insurance policy may be voided.